The massive alien predator stood at the edge of the clearing, its sleek, obsidian-black form bristling with bioarmor that seemed to shimmer faintly in the twin sun's light. Its eyes, iridescent pools of molten gold, locked onto the humans with an intelligence that sent chills down their spines. Every breath it took rumbled like distant thunder, a sound that reverberated through the ground beneath their boots. "Damn thing looks like it could tear through a battleship," Private Ellis whispered, clutching his rifle tighter. Dr. Eleanor Hayes, the team's xenobiologist and field vet, didn't respond. Her focus was on the creature's posture, low and sluggish, not the aggressive stance of a predator ready to strike. The beast, for all its imposing presence, was trembling. "It's not going to attack," she said, stepping forward, her voice calm but firm. "Not going to attack?" Ellis hissed. "Are you seeing the size of that thing? It could swallow a dropship whole." Eleanor held up a hand, silencing him. Her sharp green eyes studied the creature's movements, noting how it favored its left side. Thick, viscous blood dripped from a wound in its flank, the dark ichor steaming as it hit the ground. "It's hurt," she said. The squad's leader, Commander Jackson, stepped up beside her. He was a mountain of a man, his tactical armor scarred from years of service. "Hurt or not, Doc, that thing's still a threat. If it charges, we're all paced." "It won't," Eleanor insisted. She took another step forward, her hands raised to show she carried no weapon. "It's scared?" The beast's golden eyes flicked toward her, and it let out a low growl. The sound wasn't one of aggression, it was a warning. "That's close enough, Doc," Jackson said, his hand hovering near his sidearm. Eleanor ignored him. She crouched slowly, her movements deliberate, and opened her medkit. The beast's growl deepened, but it didn't move. Its breaths were coming faster now, and its massive chest heaved with the effort. "It's in pain," she said softly, more to herself than to the others. Ellis snorted. "Pain or not, it's still a goddamn apex predator. You're not thinking of helping it, are you?" "I am," Eleanor replied, pulling out a vial of sedative. The entire squad erupted in protest. "Are you insane?" Ellis barked. "Doc, with all due respect," Jackson began, but Eleanor cut him off. "Look at it," she said, her voice sharp. "It's dying. Whatever did this to it, it's not going to survive unless we intervene. And if it dies, we lose the chance to study the apex predator of a Deathworld-class planet." Jackson frowned, glancing at the rest of the squad. They were all tense, their weapons trained on the creature. Finally he sighed. "You've got 10 minutes, Document. But if it so much as twitches wrong, we put it down. Understood?" Eleanor nodded, already moving closer. The beast didn't react as she approached, though its eyes tracked her every move. Up close, it was even more massive than it had appeared from a distance. Its body was nearly 20 feet long, its sinewy limbs ending in razor-sharp claws that could easily bisect a human. Its bioarmor was cracked near the wound on its flank, exposing flesh that glistened with some sort of viscous, metallic fluid. Eleanor crouched beside it, her heart pounding as she examined the injury. It looked like a projectile wound, though no ordinary weapon could have pierced something as formidable as this creature. "Something big hit you, didn't it?" she murmured, her voice low and soothing. The beast rumbled in response, a sound that was neither hostile nor welcoming. It was resigned. Carefully, Eleanor pressed a scanner to the exposed flesh. The device beeped as it analyzed the tissue, revealing a complex biological structure unlike anything she'd seen before. The creature's cells were regenerating, but slowly, too slowly to save it. She injected the sedative into its bloodstream, watching as its breathing slowed. "That's it," she whispered. "Just relax." "What are you doing now?" Jackson called from the perimeter. "Stabilizing it," she replied. "The wound's infected. I need to clean it before it spreads." "Stabilizing it," Ellis muttered, shaking his head. "Unbelievable. Next she's going to say she wants to take it home as a pet." Eleanor ignored him, focused on her work. As she cleaned the wound, she noticed something peculiar. The tissue around the injury was laced with fine hair-like structures that seemed to vibrate faintly, as if responding to her touch. "What are you?" she wondered aloud. The beast let out a soft huff, its golden eyes fluttering closed. It took nearly an hour, but Eleanor finally finished her work. The creature's wound was cleaned and sealed, and she'd administered a regenerative compound that she hoped would accelerate its natural healing process. She sat back on her heels, wiping sweat from her brow. "It's stable for now," she said. Jackson approached cautiously, his weapon still drawn. "And now what? We just leave it here?" Eleanor stood, her gaze lingering on the creature. "We observe it. If it survives, we'll learn more about its biology. If it doesn't, She trailed off, unwilling to voice the possibility. Jackson sighed. You've got a soft spot for things that could eat us, document? Eleanor smiled faintly. It's just a bigger Housecat. The squad laughed nervously, but the tension didn't dissipate. Let's set up camp nearby, Jackson ordered. We'll keep an eye on it overnight. But if it so much as looks like it's waking up angry, we put it down. Got it? The others nodded, though Ellis grumbled under his breath about suicidal vets and death world madness. As the team set up camp, Eleanor couldn't help but watch the creature. Even in its weakened state, it radiated an aura of raw power and majesty. She knew they were witnessing something extraordinary, something that could reshape humanity's understanding of life on alien worlds. But as the suns dipped below the horizon and the shadows deepened, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The creature wasn't the only predator out here. The twin moons of Calidora rose over the horizon, bathing the alien jungle in an eerie silver light. Shadows danced across the dense foliage, and the low hum of nocturnal creatures filled the air. Eleanor sat by the creature, her mind racing. She had done everything she could, but the wound it bore was deeper than just physical. It carried the weight of a battle fought in a realm beyond their comprehension. The beast stirred, its massive form shifting slightly as its golden eyes flickered open for a moment before closing again. Eleanor felt a strange pang of empathy. For all its deadly grace and raw power, it was vulnerable now, a towering apex predator brought low by circumstances she still didn't fully understand. What could have taken it down like this? She muttered to herself, reviewing the scan results again. Whatever had pierced its bioarmor had left behind traces of an energy signature unfamiliar even to her advanced instruments. It wasn't natural and it wasn't human. From the edge of the camp, Commander Jackson watched her like a hawk. Doc, you sure this thing isn't just playing dead? It's too quiet out here. I don't like it. Eleanor glanced at him and shook her head. It's not playing dead. It's recovering, but barely. And for the record, I don't like it either. Something big put this thing down and it might still be out there. Great, Ellis muttered, pacing nervously as he scanned the jungle with his rifle. So, we're babysitting an alien Godzilla while the bigger bad guy's probably watching us through the trees. Fantastic plan. Jackson silenced him with a glare. Stay sharp. If there's something out there, we'll handle it. Despite his confidence, the squad couldn't shake the oppressive sense of being watched. The jungle's usual cacophony of chirps and growls had gone unnervingly quiet, and even the trees seemed to lean inward, their gnarled branches casting unnatural shadows. Eleanor stood, stretching her legs, and approached Jackson. I want to take another look at the area where we found it. There might be clues about what attacked it. Out of the question, Jackson replied immediately. We're not splitting up, not in this terrain. If we don't figure out what happened, we're sitting ducks, Eleanor argued. That thing, she gestured to the predator behind her, isn't the only apex in this ecosystem. Something bigger is out there and I need to know what we're dealing with. Jackson hesitated, weighing the risk. Finally he nodded. Fine. Take Ramirez with you. Stay in radio contact and don't go far. Eleanor nodded, grabbing her scanner and gear. Ramirez, a stoic soldier with a knack for staying calm under pressure, fell in step behind her as they entered the jungle. The jungle was a maze of twisted vines and towering trees, their trunks glowing faintly with bioluminescent patterns. Eleanor moved carefully, her scanner sweeping the ground for any anomalies. So, Doc, Ramirez said, breaking the silence, what's the real plan here? You trying to save that thing because it's valuable or because you like it? Eleanor smirked faintly. A bit of both. It's not every day you get to study an apex predator from a Deathworld-class planet. But, she hesitated. There's something about it. It's intelligent. You saw how it didn't attack us even when it was cornered. That's not just instinct. That's restraint. Restraint, huh? Ramirez said, scanning the shadows. Let's hope it doesn't change its mind once it's back on its feet. As they moved deeper into the jungle, Eleanor's scanner beeped, picking up faint traces of the energy signature from the predator's wound. She crouched, examining a broken tree branch that glowed faintly with residual energy. Here, she said, gesturing for Ramirez to cover her. This is the same signature from the wound. Ramirez glanced at the glowing branch. What the hell leaves a mark like that? Not natural, Eleanor replied. This is engineered. A weapon. She stood, her mind racing. Whatever hit it, it wasn't a rival predator. It was something technological. Ramirez frowned. You're saying this thing wasn't attacked by another animal? I'm saying it was hunted, Eleanor said grimly. Before Ramirez could respond, a sudden noise froze them both in place. a low, guttural clicking sound that seemed to echo from all directions. "What the hell is that?" Ramirez whispered, his rifle at the ready. Eleanor's blood ran cold. "Not good." The clicking grew louder, closer, and the jungle around them seemed to come alive. Shapes moved in the shadows, their outlines just barely visible. Then, with a burst of movement, a figure stepped into the light. It was humanoid but far from human. Its body was tall and lithe, covered in sleek, chitinous armor that shimmered like oil on water. In its hands, it carried a long, spear-like weapon that pulsed faintly with the same energy signature as the predator's wound. "Ramirez," Eleanor said slowly, her voice barely above a whisper, "don't move." The alien hunter tilted its head, its black, featureless faceplate seeming to regard them with curiosity. "Is that what I think it is?" Ramirez asked, his voice tense. "Yep," Eleanor replied. "And it's not friendly?" The hunter let out a sharp, clicking sound, and more figures emerged from the jungle, surrounding them. Each one carried similar weapons, their movements fluid and predatory. Eleanor's mind raced. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and deep in enemy territory. But one thought burned brighter than the others. The predator they had saved wasn't just a victim, it was prey in a game far larger than they had realized. Back at the camp, Jackson and the others were growing restless. The quiet was unnatural, and the beast hadn't stirred since Eleanor left. Suddenly, the predator's golden eyes snapped open. It let out a deep, rumbling growl, its body tensing as if sensing something the humans couldn't. "What's wrong with it now?" Alice asked, backing away. Jackson's jaw tightened. "Get ready. Something's coming." The jungle around them erupted into chaos as the hunters emerged from the shadows, their weapons glowing with lethal intent. And in the heart of the storm, the wounded apex predator rose to its full height, its golden eyes blazing with fury. This fight wasn't over. It had just begun. The clearing erupted into chaos as the alien hunters surged forward, their sleek forms moving with terrifying speed. Jackson barely had time to shout, "Open fire," before the first wave was upon them. Energy spears crackled and hummed as they sliced through the air, their tips leaving trails of glowing light. The squad responded with precision honed from years of combat. Plasma bolts lit up the night, cutting through the shadows as the soldiers tried to hold their ground. Ellis, crouched behind a fallen tree, let out a string of curses as he fired, his shots ricocheting off the hunter's chitinous armor. "These things are armored like tanks," he shouted. Jackson gritted his teeth, emptying his rifle into the closest hunter. The alien staggered back, its armor smoking, but it didn't fall. Instead, it let out an eerie, clicking laugh before lunging forward. The tide of the battle shifted when the predator they'd saved roared, a deep, primal sound that shook the ground beneath their feet. The beast, towering and furious, charged into the fray. Its massive claws tore through one of the hunters like paper, sending pieces of armor and glowing ichor flying. Ellis froze, his mouth agape. "It's helping us? Don't just stand there. Cover it." Jackson barked, reloading his rifle. Deeper in the jungle, Eleanor and Ramirez stood frozen as the alien hunters circled them, their weapons raised. The lead hunter took a step closer, its head tilting as if studying them. Eleanor's mind raced. These creatures weren't mindless killers. They were calculating, intelligent, and far more advanced than anything she'd encountered before. "What do we do, Doc?" Ramirez asked, his voice low and tense. "Stay calm," she said, raising her hands slowly. "They haven't attacked yet. Maybe they're not hostile." As if to mock her words, the lead hunter lunged forward, its spear crackling with energy. Ramirez fired instinctively, the plasma bolt hitting the hunter square in the chest. The alien staggered but didn't fall. Instead, it let out a guttural snarl and raised its weapon. Before it could strike, the jungle exploded with motion. Trees crashed to the ground as the apex predator, the same creature Eleanor had treated, charged into the clearing. It barreled into the lead hunter, its massive jaws snapping shut around the alien's torso. "Holy," Ramirez started, but Eleanor grabbed his arm. "Run," she shouted, pulling him away as the predator tore through the hunters with terrifying efficiency. The remaining hunters turned their attention to the beast, their weapons glowing brighter as they coordinated their attacks. Energy spears flew through the air, striking the predator's bioarmor and sending up sparks. The creature roared in defiance, its claws swiping through two more hunters. Eleanor and Ramirez didn't stop running until they burst into the clearing where the rest of the squad was fighting. "Doc," Jackson called, relief flashing across his face. "What the hell is going on?" "No time to explain," Eleanor shouted, pointing to the predator as it charged into the clearing, a trio of hunters hot on its heels. That thing is on our side for now. The squad hesitated for only a moment before resuming their attack. Plasma bolts flew, and the clearing became a battlefield once again. Despite their combined efforts, the hunters were relentless. For every one they managed to take down, another seemed to appear from the shadows. The predator was their greatest asset, its immense strength and ferocity turning the tide of the battle. But even it wasn't invincible. Eleanor watched in horror as one of the hunters landed a direct hit, its spear piercing the predator's side. The creature roared in pain but didn't falter. It turned on its attacker, its jaws snapping shut with a sickening crunch. "We're not going to make it," Alice shouted, his voice panicked. "There are too many of them." Eleanor refused to accept that. Her mind worked frantically, searching for a solution. That's when she remembered the energy signature she'd scanned earlier, the same one that matched the hunter's weapons. "Jackson," she called. "I think I can overload their weapons." Jackson glanced at her, his expression grim. "You'd better be sure, Doc, because we're running out of time." "I need a distraction," she replied, already moving toward her equipment. Jackson nodded. "Alice Ramirez with me. Keep those things off her." The three soldiers formed a defensive line, their weapons firing nonstop as Eleanor worked. She connected her scanner to a portable power cell, modifying it to emit a pulse at the same frequency as the hunter's energy signature. Come on," she muttered, her fingers flying over the controls. The predator, bloodied but unbroken, continued to fight alongside the squad. It was a blur of claws and teeth, its roars echoing through the clearing as it tore through the remaining hunters. Finally, Eleanor's device beeped, signaling it was ready. "Everyone get down," she shouted. The squad hit the ground as she activated the pulse. A wave of energy rippled through the clearing, and the hunters' weapons sparked violently before exploding in their hands. The aliens let out shrieks of pain and fury, their advantage suddenly gone. The predator seized the opportunity, charging the disarmed hunters with renewed fury. Within moments the battle was over. The surviving hunters fled into the jungle, their eerie clicking cries fading into the distance. The clearing fell silent, save for the heavy breathing of the squad and the low rumble of the predator's growls. Jackson pushed himself to his feet, his rifle still at the ready. "Doc, remind me to never question your crazy ideas again." Eleanor let out a shaky laugh, her hands trembling as she powered down the device. "I'll take that as a compliment." The predator, now covered in blood and scorch marks, turned to face them. For a moment the squad tensed, unsure if it would see them as allies or enemies. But the creature merely let out a low huff before collapsing onto the ground, exhausted. Eleanor approached it cautiously, her heart pounding. "You're okay," she said softly, kneeling beside it. "You did good." The predator's golden eyes met hers briefly before closing. It trusted her, she realized, and in that moment she knew they had crossed a boundary that few humans ever had. As the squad regrouped, Jackson looked out at the jungle, his expression grim. "That wasn't just a random encounter," he said. "Those hunters were here for a reason." Eleanor nodded. "They weren't just hunting the predator. They were testing it. Testing us." The implications hung heavy in the air as the team prepared to move out. They had survived the night, but Eleanor knew this was only the beginning. Whatever had sent the hunters wasn't done with them yet. The air in the clearing hung heavy with the scent of blood and the ozone tang of discharged energy weapons. The jungle, though temporarily quiet, seemed alive with the foreboding sense that something worse was yet to come. Eleanor knelt by the predator, carefully inspecting its wounds. Though its bioarmor had saved it from death, its injuries were critical. Jackson approached, his rifle slung over his shoulder, his face etched with concern. "Doc, how's it looking?" "Not good," Eleanor replied, her voice low. "Its internal systems are failing. I can stabilize it temporarily, but it's not going to survive unless we find a way off this planet and get it proper medical attention." Jackson nodded grimly. "We'll figure something out. But first, we need to understand what just happened." Eleanor stood, wiping her hands on her pants. Those hunters were targeting it specifically. They weren't just here to kill, they were studying. Testing its limits? She looked at Jackson. "And if this creature is what I think it might not be the only one of its kind left." Jackson frowned. "Are you saying there's more of these things out there?" "Maybe," Eleanor said, glancing at the predator. "But they won't last long if those hunters keep coming. This planet is a battlefield and we're caught in the middle of something way bigger than us." Before Jackson could respond, the predator let out a low, guttural growl. Its golden eyes opened, locking onto Eleanor with an intensity that made her heart skip a beat. It shifted its massive frame, struggling to rise. "Hey, easy," she said, stepping closer. "You're hurt. You need to rest." But the predator ignored her, forcing itself to its feet. It let out a deep, resonant roar that echoed through the jungle, a sound filled with both defiance and a warning. Jackson's radio crackled to life. "Commander, we've got movement, northwest quadrant." "Lots of it," Ellis reported, his voice tense. Jackson's jaw tightened. "How many?" Ellis hesitated. "Too many. Looks like the hunters brought reinforcements." Eleanor felt a chill run down her spine. "They're not going to stop until they finish what they started." Jackson turned to his squad. "We're leaving. Now, grab what you can carry and prepare to move out." But the predator stepped forward, blocking their path. It let out a low growl, its eyes sweeping over the humans. "What's it doing?" Ramirez asked, raising his weapon cautiously. Eleanor held up a hand. "Wait. I think it's trying to tell us something." The predator turned toward the jungle, its massive frame radiating a sense of purpose. It let out another roar, shorter this time, then looked back at Eleanor. "It's leading us," she said, realization dawning. "It knows a way out." Jackson hesitated, glancing at the jungle where the hunters' reinforcements were closing in. "We don't have much of a choice. If it knows a way, we follow." The squad moved quickly, following the predator as it forged a path through the dense jungle. Despite its injuries, the creature moved with a determined grace, its senses sharp and focused. Alice, bringing up the rear, muttered nervously, "This feels like a trap. What if it's leading us straight to its den?" "It's not," Eleanor said firmly. "It doesn't want to die any more than we do. Trust me." Ramirez glanced at her. "You've got more faith in that thing than I do." Eleanor didn't respond. She couldn't explain it, but she felt an unshakable connection to the predator, a bond forged not just through her efforts to save it, but through the shared experience of survival. As they neared a clearing, the predator slowed, its ears twitching. Eleanor could feel the tension in its body, the way it seemed to anticipate danger. "Stay alert," Jackson said, signaling for the squad to spread out. The clearing was vast, dominated by a sheer cliff face that rose high into the sky. At its base was what looked like an ancient structure, overgrown with vines and glowing faintly with the same bioluminescent energy as the hunters' weapons. "What is that?" Alice asked, staring in awe. Eleanor's breath caught. "It's a gate. Portal maybe. It must be how the hunters got here, and how we can leave." The predator stepped forward, growling softly as it approached the structure. It seemed to recognize it as if it had been here before. But before anyone could act, the jungle erupted once again. The hunters' reinforcements burst into the clearing, their weapons glowing ominously. They moved with unnerving precision, surrounding the humans and the predator. "This is it," Ramirez muttered, raising his rifle. "We're not getting out of this one." Jackson barked orders, the squad forming a defensive circle. Plasma bolts flew as the hunters closed in, their energy spears crackling. Amid the chaos, the predator roared, charging into the fray with feral intensity. It tore through the hunters with reckless abandon, its claws and jaws a blur of destruction. But for every hunter it took down, more seemed to appear. Eleanor watched in horror as the predator began to falter. Its injuries were taking their toll, and the hunters were relentless. "No," she shouted, running toward it despite Jackson's protests. The predator turned to her, its golden eyes filled with a strange mix of determination and resignation. It let out a low, rumbling growl, then turned back to the gate. With a sudden burst of speed, it charged forward, slamming into the ancient structure. The gate roared to life, a swirling vortex of light and energy erupting from its center. The hunters hesitated, their attention shifting to the portal. "Move," Jackson shouted. Everyone through the gate. The squad didn't need to be told twice. They sprinted toward the portal, covering each other as they went. Eleanor was the last to reach it, turning back just in time to see the predator standing defiantly in the clearing. It roared one final time, a sound that seemed to shake the very ground before launching itself at the remaining hunters. The last thing Eleanor saw before stepping through the gate was the predator, surrounded but unbroken, fighting with every ounce of strength it had left. When the squad emerged on the other side, they found themselves on a new planet, a barren, rocky landscape under a sky filled with unfamiliar stars. Jackson took a deep breath, lowering his rifle. "We made it." Eleanor turned back toward the portal, hoping against hope that the predator would follow. But the gate shimmered and closed, leaving them in silence. Ramirez put a hand on her shoulder. "It saved us, document." "It knew what it was doing." Eleanor nodded, her throat tight. She looked up at the stars, silently vowing never to forget the creature that had given everything to protect them. The predator was gone, but its legacy lived on, in the humans it had chosen to save and in the bond they had shared, however briefly. "Let's move," Jackson said, his voice soft. "We've got a new world to survive." As they began their journey across the alien landscape, Eleanor couldn't shake the feeling that their story wasn't over. Somewhere in the vastness of the universe the Predator's fight continued, and so would theirs.